Everything seemed perfect at Heartland until it wasn't. The sun still rose over the fields. The horses still ran free, and the family still sat around the same old table. But sometimes heartbreak doesn't come loudly. Sometimes it creeps in slowly, when no one is watching. Heartland Season 19 begins with a sense of peace. The ranch is quiet in the early mornings, with birds singing and the wind gently blowing across the fields. Amy wakes before sunrise, like always, ready to feed the horses. Her daughter Lindy runs after a small foal in the pasture, laughing. It almost feels like old times. It feels safe. Jack walks into the kitchen, pours himself coffee, and watches Lisa prepare breakfast. They share a smile, a familiar look between two people who have seen many storms and survived them together. Lou is in town, busy planning her next campaign event. She's more focused than ever, trying to balance being a mother, mayor, and sister all at once. At first glance, everything seems fine. The ranch runs smoothly. Tim helps with the horses. Katie spends more time with her mom. Even Caleb stops by more often to lend a hand. For fans watching, this peaceful beginning is comforting. It feels like Heartland is finally healing after everything it's been through, especially after Ty's heartbreaking death. But under the surface, something doesn't feel right. Amy smiles, but her eyes look tired. She walks through the barn and touches the old stall where Ty used to stand. She doesn't say anything, but the pain is still there. It never left, it just went quiet for a while. There's a moment where Amy finds a worn-out jacket of Ty's, tucked in a corner of the barn. She holds it for a second. The camera doesn't need to show her crying. Her silence says everything. This is the peace before the storm, the kind that holds its breath before something breaks. Jack notices too. He watches Amy from a distance, unsure whether to step in or give her space. He's always been her rock, but even he knows there are wounds that time hasn't fully healed. Lisa tells him not to worry too much, but he knows better. Heartland may look calm, but he feels a change coming, and then late one night a letter arrives at the ranch. It's sealed and marked with a name Amy hasn't seen in years. She doesn't open it right away. She just stares at it as if it carries a weight heavier than anything she's lifted before. This is how Season 19 starts, not with loud drama, but with quiet, emotional tension that grows with every scene. For longtime fans, it's the kind of beginning that feels familiar, but also makes them nervous. Because peace never lasts forever at Heartland. Amy was doing everything right, or at least, she was trying to. She smiled for Lindy, cared for the horses, and helped everyone who came to Heartland. But inside, something was slipping. Grief has a strange way of hiding. It can stay quiet for weeks, even months, and then suddenly come back stronger than ever with just one small memory. It started when Amy took Lindy to visit the fishing spot by the river. It was a place filled with memories, good ones. She had gone there many times with Ty. They used to sit there, legs in the water, laughing at nothing at all. It used to be their escape from the world. But this time, the place felt different. Cold, empty. The wind blew through the trees like it was whispering old words. And Amy couldn't block them out. Lindy was asking questions about her dad, the way only a curious child could. Did he like fish? Did he ever catch a big one? Amy answered with a forced smile, nodding, trying to stay strong. But when Lindy wandered off chasing butterflies, Amy sat down and let the silence wrap around her. Her hand clutched a rock shaped like a heart one Ty had once found and given to her there. She hadn't meant to cry. But she did. Later that evening, Amy returned to the barn. She tried to focus, brush the horses, fix a saddle, but her hands were shaking. She found herself staring at Ty's old tools, untouched on the bench. She hadn't moved them. Maybe part of her never wanted to. Caleb walked in, noticing her stare. He said nothing, just nodded, understanding more than words ever could. At dinner, Amy barely spoke. Lou noticed, but didn't push. Jack, always quiet and wise, watched her carefully. He could see the cracks forming again. When Lisa asked Amy if she was all right, Amy nodded, but her voice trembled. "I'm fine," she whispered. But everyone at the table knew she wasn't. That night, Amy sat alone in the loft. Holding a photo of Ty, she whispered to it as if he could hear. "I thought I was stronger by now. Her voice broke. But I still miss you like it was yesterday. The stars outside blinked quietly and the house felt too big. Too quiet. Too full of ghosts. Season 19 doesn't need big drama to break your heart. It does it in the quietest ways, by showing a mother who's trying her best, a woman who still carries the pain of love lost, and a family doing all they can to help, even when they don't have the right words. Amy's journey is far from over. And this season? It promises to take her deeper into her past, testing just how far she's come, or how far she still has to go. It sat untouched for 2 days. The letter. Sealed in an old brown envelope, worn at the edges like it had traveled far and waited too long. Amy kept it on the table beside her bed, pretending it wasn't there, but every time she walked by, her eyes returned to it. She didn't recognize the sender's name, but somehow, deep inside, she already knew it was about Ty on the 3rd. Morning, just after feeding the horses, Amy sat down and finally opened it. Her fingers trembled. The paper inside was thin, the handwriting careful. And with the very first line, her world shifted. Ty saved my life, and I need you to know the truth. The letter came from a woman named Cora, she claimed to have known Ty during his time away when he was doing aid work overseas, years before he returned to Heartland for good. Amy's heart raced as she read Cora's story. Ty had helped her and her injured brother escape a violent conflict. He had carried the boy on his back for miles, through dangerous terrain, refusing to leave them behind, but that wasn't the part that shook Amy. It was the next sentence. Ty always said he left something unfinished. He told me if anything happened to him, I should go to Heartland and find you. Amy stared at the letter in disbelief. Ty had never mentioned Cora, not once. Why now? Why after all this time? She read the letter 3 times, her emotions swinging between confusion, anger, and a sharp, aching sadness. There was something in Ty's past that he had hidden, and now it was surfacing. Later that evening, Amy showed the letter to Jack. He read it slowly, his brow furrowed. Ty was a good man, Jack said finally, but maybe he thought some things were too painful to bring home. Amy nodded, but didn't help. It only deepened the questions. What had Ty left behind? And why had he asked Cora to come? The next day, Lou walked into the kitchen to find Amy staring at the letter again. Amy handed it to her without a word. Lou's face paled as she read it. "Do you think she's coming here?" Lou asked. Amy didn't answer. She didn't know what scared her more, that this woman might show up, or that she might not. Amy's thoughts spiraled. What if Ty had regrets he never told her about? What if there was more to his life than she ever knew? The idea haunted her. She wasn't angry at Ty, not really, but the feeling of being left. In the dark, of being asked to carry one more piece of grief, it was too much. That night, Amy sat in the barn again, holding the letter. She whispered, "Why didn't you tell me, Ty?" No one answered, only the quiet shuffle of horses nearby. The piece of Heartland was cracking. The past was no longer resting. And heartbreak, once again, was moving in like a slow, quiet storm, because this wasn't just a letter. It was a doorway to something Amy had never prepared for. And when that door opened, everything would change. The knock came just after sunset, soft, polite, but heavy, like the sound of something too important to ignore. Amy opened the door slowly, unsure of what she was expecting. Maybe a neighbor, maybe no one. But what she saw on the porch made her heart stop. A young woman stood there, nervous but calm. Her hair was pulled back, her clothes dusty from travel, and her eyes held something familiar. She looked like someone who had walked 1,000 miles and still hadn't arrived. "I'm Cora," she said gently. "Ty told me about this place." Amy couldn't speak. She nodded, barely breathing, and stepped aside to let the woman in. For a moment, time stood still. The family, Lou, Jack, Lisa, Tim, all watched from the living room in silence. Cora took a few slow steps inside, then looked around like she had entered a sacred space. "It's just how he described it," she whispered. They gave her tea, sat around the kitchen table. And finally, Amy asked the question everyone else was afraid to. "Why are you here?" Cora placed a small wooden box on the table. "Ty gave me this a long time ago," she said. He said I should only bring it to Heartland if he didn't come back. Amy hesitated, then slowly opened the box. Inside were a few things: a photo of Ty as a young man, a worn-out leather bracelet, a letter, and something that looked like a tiny folded flag from the camp where he had volunteered. Amy picked up the letter and read silently. Ty had written it to her years before his death. It was filled with memories, regrets, and love. He spoke about the things he never had the courage to say in person, about the pain he carried, about the lives he couldn't save, and about the woman Cora who had helped him survive when he nearly broke. By the end of the letter, Amy was crying. Not just for Ty, but for the version of him she never knew. Cora, sitting across the table, also had tears in her eyes. "He was my friend," she said. "But he always talked about coming home to you. He loved you more than anything. I was just someone he helped and someone who helped him back." But the peace at the table didn't last. Tim didn't trust Cora. He said it out loud. Jack asked for space to process everything. Lou tried to be polite but looked worried. The energy in the room shifted. Heartland had always been a place of healing, but now it felt tense, uncertain. And Amy? She felt pulled in every direction. Cora asked if she could stay a few days just to see the ranch. Amy agreed, even though part of her wasn't sure why. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the silent hope that this stranger could help her feel close to. Ty again, but nothing at Heartland stays quiet for long, and with Cora's arrival, new questions rose. Who was she really? Why now? And what else was Ty hiding? This new arrival didn't just shake the ranch. She shook Amy's soul. Jack Bartlett had always been the strong one, the backbone of Heartland, the quiet man who carried everyone's pain without complaint. He had seen loss before. He had buried loved ones, but nothing prepared him for watching Amy quietly fall apart. Again, he didn't say much when Cora arrived. He watched, listened, observed the way Amy's eyes looked both hopeful and hurt when Cora spoke about Ty. He noticed how Amy stayed out in the barn longer now, how she skipped dinner, how her smile only came when Lindy was around. One evening, Jack found himself sitting in Ty's old loft. Dust clung to the air and the light was dim. He looked around at the tools, the books, the life Ty had left behind. He sat in silence for a long time before finally whispering, "I wish you were here, kid." His voice cracked just once. Lisa found him there later. She didn't speak at first. She just placed a hand on his shoulder and sat beside him. Finally, Jack admitted something he hadn't said to anyone. "I keep thinking I should have done more. For Amy, for Ty, I should have said more while he was here." Lisa squeezed his hand. "You were there when it mattered, Jack. That's what counts." But Jack didn't believe it, not fully. He started waking earlier, working harder, keeping himself busy. When the pain becomes too much, some men go quiet. Jack went silent. He didn't want to talk about Cora. He didn't want to admit how much it hurt to watch Amy relive her grief. He just kept building fences, cleaning stalls, mending broken things, everything but his own heart. Then one night he broke. It was a small thing. Jack had gone to fix the old barn door. It kept creaking in the wind. He grabbed Ty's hammer, without thinking. But when he held it in his hand, something in him shattered. He dropped the hammer and sank to the ground, shoulders shaking. Not sobbing, just breaking. Amy walked in and saw him. For a moment, neither of them said a word. Then she sat beside him and leaned her head on his shoulder. "You don't have to carry it all, Grandpa," she whispered. Jack nodded, eyes closed. "I know. But sometimes I forget how to let go." Heartland Season 19 doesn't just explore Amy's grief, it shows the pain that spreads through generations. Jack is the anchor of the family, but even anchors can sink under too much weight. And when the strongest man begins to break, it shows just how deep the heartbreak runs, because sometimes the loudest pain comes in silence, and Jack's silence, it speaks volumes. It was supposed to bring closure. That's what Amy told herself. A decision meant to bring peace, not pain. But the moment she spoke the words out loud, the room froze. The air felt heavier. Her family stared at her not in anger, but in disbelief. "I'm selling the upper pasture," she said. "The one where Ty planted those trees?" Jack's hand paused mid-air, his fork hovering above his plate. Lou's mouth opened, but no words came. Lisa looked down, unsure of what to say. Only Lindy, too young to understand, continued eating like nothing had changed. Amy had reasons. The ranch needed repairs. Vet bills were rising. And that part of the land hadn't been used in years. But deep down, this wasn't just about money. It was about letting go. That piece of land had become a monument to pain. Every time she walked through it, she saw Ty, his smile, his boots in the dirt, his hands planting those young trees, hopeful for the future. And every time it broke her, but the family didn't see it that way. Jack stood up slowly. "That land was special," he said. "You know that?" His voice wasn't angry, just hurt. Lou folded her arms. "You should have talked to us before making that choice." Even Tim, who usually stayed out of these things, said, "Are you sure this is what Ty would have wanted?" Amy didn't respond right away, because she wasn't sure. She didn't know if this was healing or running, if she was letting go or giving up. Later that night, Amy walked the pasture alone. The trees Ty had planted were taller now, still young but growing strong. She knelt beside one and touched the bark, her fingers tracing the initials Ty had once carved. A plus T, still barely visible. Tears fell before she could stop them. She remembered how Ty talked about bringing Lindy here someday. How he said they'd build a small bench under the trees and watch her grow up. That dream would never come true. And that was the hardest part, not the land, not the trees, but the future that had vanished. The next morning, Amy told the family she had changed her mind. "I thought selling it would help," she said quietly. "But I realized something. I don't want to erase him. I just want to stop hurting every time I see him." The choice may have been reversed, but the damage lingered. Relationships had been tested, words had been spoken, and a truth was uncovered. Everyone was still grieving in their own way. Lou with her control, Jack with his silence, Amy with her decisions. Heartland Season 19 hurts, not because of big fights or dramatic exits, but because of these moments. Moments where love and pain collide. Where one choice, even with good intentions, opens wounds that never fully healed. And sometimes the hardest part of moving forward is knowing which parts of the past to keep. It didn't come with warning. There was no thunder, no final argument, no dramatic storm rolling over Heartland. Just a quiet morning, a note on the table, and silence where there should have been laughter. Cora was gone. Amy found the note first, folded neatly beside a half-finished mug of tea. The handwriting was familiar now, graceful, calm, but filled with weight. "Thank you for letting me be here," it read. "This ranch, this family. It showed me the kind of love Ty always talked about. But I know I don't belong here. Not forever. No one had expected it." After everything, after the stories, the letters, the shared tears, Cora had become part of Heartland, if only briefly. Lindy had grown fond of her, even calling her Miss Cora and following her like a shadow. Lou had softened. Even Jack, guarded as ever, had begun to ask about her morning coffee preferences. And Amy? Amy had started to find comfort in the presence of someone who understood a part of Ty that she never knew. So why did Cora leave? Maybe she knew her time was borrowed? Maybe she felt like her presence stirred more sorrow than healing. Or maybe, deep down, she believed she had served her purpose to carry Ty's final message home, to remind Amy of the man she loved, and help her begin to truly let go. Amy stood at the edge of the ranch as the sun came up, holding the letter Cora left behind. In it, Cora spoke of Ty's laughter, his fierce heart, his dreams for Lindy, and a final line that broke Amy's heart all over again. "He never stopped loving you, not even for a second." That morning, Amy didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just watched the sun climb over the trees Ty had planted. And for the first time in a long time, she smiled, not because she was over the pain, but because she finally felt ready to carry it, without letting it crush her. Season 19 closes not with noise, but with stillness, the kind that settles after a long, painful storm. A goodbye was given not just to Cora, but to the weight of unfinished memories. Amy found peace not in forgetting Ty, but in accepting that his story didn't end when he died. It continues in the land he loved, in the daughter he left behind, and in the woman who's learning to stand without him, and that's why season 19 will break your heart, because it doesn't shout, it whispers. It shows us how grief lingers, how love doesn't die, and how even in the silence healing begins.